The moment I reached the church, a young woman in a black headset stepped directly into my path. "Excuse me," she said, glancing at a clipboard. "You're not supposed to use the main entrance." I smiled politely. "I'm the groom's mother." Her expression didn't change. "Yes, ma'am. I was instructed to bring you through the service entrance. The kitchen entrance is around the back." For a second, I thought she was joking. Then I saw the wedding planner standing 20 feet away. And she wouldn't look me in the eye. My stomach dropped. The guests were arriving through the front doors. My son Ethan's future father-in-law was greeting everyone at the entrance. The bridesmaids were laughing near the floral arch. And I was being sent through the kitchen. At my own son's wedding. I stood frozen. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Who instructed you to do that?" The woman hesitated. Then she answered. "The bride. My future daughter-in-law, Jessica. The woman Ethan planned to marry in less than an hour. The same woman I'd welcomed into our family 3 years earlier. The same woman I'd defended countless times. The same woman who used to call me her second mother." Suddenly my chest felt tight. I managed a weak smile. "Thank you." Then I walked around the building. Past dumpsters. Past delivery trucks. Past stacks of empty catering boxes. I entered through a steel door marked staff only. The kitchen workers barely noticed me. One cook pushed a cart of dishes past my shoulder. Another pointed me toward a hallway. And just like that, I found myself entering my son's wedding through the same door used for food deliveries. I wanted to cry. But I didn't. Not yet. Because this wasn't the first strange thing Jessica had done. It was only the latest. And if I'm honest, the signs had started months earlier. At first they were small. Easy to dismiss. Easy to explain away. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself. My name is Diane. I'm 60 years old. A widow. And Ethan is my only child. After my husband died 15 years ago, Ethan became my whole world. We were close. Not in an unhealthy way. Just close. We survived grief together. Built a life together. Supported each other. When he introduced Jessica, I was thrilled. She was beautiful. Smart. Ambitious. At first, she seemed kind. She hugged me. Asked for recipes. Invited me to lunch. She even called me when Ethan worked late. I thought I'd gained a daughter. Then things began changing. The first clue appeared 6 months before the wedding. Jessica stopped inviting me to family dinners. Instead, Ethan would call afterward. "Sorry, Mom. It was kind of last minute." The second clue came at Thanksgiving. Everyone received personalized gifts. Jessica's parents. Her siblings. Her cousins. Even Ethan. But somehow she'd forgotten mine. She apologized. Said she'd accidentally left it at home. I believed her. Until I realized she never brought it later. Then came Christmas. When she introduced me to someone as Ethan's mother. Not Diane. Not family. Not even future family. Just Ethan's mother. Something about the way she said it hurt. Like I was a footnote. An obligation. A background character. When I mentioned it to my sister Carol, she frowned. "I don't like it. You're imagining things. Diane, you're always making excuses for people." I laughed it off. But deep down, I knew she might be right. The clues kept coming. Jessica started having secret phone conversations whenever I entered a room. She'd lower her voice. Or leave entirely. One afternoon, I arrived at Ethan's house unexpectedly with homemade soup. I heard Jessica talking in the backyard. The moment she saw me, she ended the call. Immediately. Her face went pale. Ethan home? I asked. No. Her answer came too quickly. Almost rehearsed. Then she glanced toward the fence. Like she'd been caught doing something. Driving home that evening, I couldn't shake the feeling. Something was wrong. But what? Weeks later I discovered another clue. A receipt. By accident. Jessica had left it on the kitchen counter. It was from a luxury hotel downtown. A private event package. Several $1,000s. The date matched their wedding weekend. Yet Ethan had repeatedly told me they were trying to save money. Why would Jessica spend thousands on something she was hiding? And why keep it secret from me? The questions multiplied. The answers never came. Then one night, Ethan called unexpectedly. His voice sounded exhausted. "Mom, are you okay?" The question surprised me. "Of course." Silence. Then he said something strange. "If anyone says anything weird, don't jump to conclusions." "What does that mean?" Another silence. Then he changed the subject. I barely slept that night. Because for the first time, I wondered if Ethan knew something. Something he wasn't telling me. Something involving Jessica. And as the wedding approached, the clues only grew darker. I had no idea that the worst betrayal was still ahead. And that in a few short months, I'd be standing behind a church kitchen door wondering whether my future daughter-in-law had deliberately erased me from the most important day of my son's life. What I didn't know was that the truth was far more heartbreaking than anything I could imagine. The wedding wasn't even the most painful thing Jessica did. 3 weeks before the ceremony, I accidentally overheard a conversation that convinced me she wanted me out of Ethan's life forever, and when I finally confronted her, the answer she gave made everything worse. 3 weeks before the wedding, I stood frozen outside Ethan's house with a grocery bag in my hands. I hadn't planned to stop by. I'd simply baked Ethan's favorite apple pie and thought I'd surprise him. Instead, I walked straight into the conversation that shattered my heart. Jessica was in the dining room. The front window was partially open. I wasn't trying to listen. But then I heard my name. "She can't be part of it." My feet stopped moving. A woman's voice answered. "Jessica's mother." "What if Ethan finds out?" Jessica sighed. "He won't." My stomach tightened. I moved closer without thinking. The grocery bag trembled in my hands. Then Jessica said the words that haunted me for weeks. "I don't want her involved." Silence. Then her mother spoke softly. "Are you sure?" "Yes." The answer came instantly. Without hesitation. Without guilt. Without compassion. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I turned around and walked back to my car. The entire drive home, tears blurred my vision. I kept hearing the same sentence. I don't want her involved. Not involved in what? The wedding? Their future? Their family? My son? The possibilities tortured me. For days I barely slept. I replayed every interaction from the last year. Every awkward smile. Every forgotten invitation. Every strange phone call. Every moment she made me feel like an outsider. Suddenly everything fit together. Jessica didn't want a mother-in-law. She wanted Ethan all to herself. And I was standing in the way. My sister Carol wasn't surprised. "I've been telling you for months." "I don't know." "Diane." She grabbed my hand. "Open your eyes." I wanted to defend Jessica. I really did. But the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. Then things got worse. A week later, Ethan canceled our monthly lunch. That had never happened before. Not once. His excuse sounded forced. "Work's been crazy, Mom." But when I called later that evening, he didn't answer. Neither did the next day. Or the day after. I wasn't angry. I was scared. It felt like I was slowly losing my son. And Jessica was helping it happen. Then came the wedding rehearsal. The moment that convinced me beyond all doubt. When I arrived at the church, everyone was already there. Jessica's parents sat in the front pews. Her relatives laughed together. The wedding planner rushed around giving instructions. I looked for my seat. And finally found my name. Third row. On the groom's side. Behind Jessica's extended family. Behind people who'd known Ethan for less than 3 years. I stared at the card in disbelief. Third row. The groom's mother. Third row. I looked toward Ethan. He seemed distracted. Nervous. Exhausted. Like he hadn't slept in days. I considered telling him. But something stopped me. If Jessica really was pushing me out. The last thing I wanted was to create drama before his wedding. So I stayed quiet. And that decision nearly destroyed me. The next morning arrived. Wedding day. The day every mother imagines. The day I thought I'd feel proud. Happy. Celebrated. Instead, I entered through a kitchen. While strangers entered through the front door. As I stood in the hallway trying not to cry, I heard voices nearby. Jessica and the wedding planner. They didn't know I was there. The groom's mother is inside. Jessica nodded. Good. Good? Good? My heart cracked. There it was. Proof. Absolute proof. Or so I thought. I quietly stepped away before they saw me. The ceremony began 20 minutes later. I sat alone. Humiliated. Invisible. Watching guests smile and laugh. Watching Jessica pose for photographs. Watching Ethan stand at the altar. And for the first time in my life, I felt unwanted by my own family. Then the music started. Jessica appeared at the entrance. Beautiful. Confident. Radiant. The guests stood. The doors opened. She began walking down the aisle. Everything seemed perfect. Until Ethan raised his hand. And said one word. Stop. The music died instantly. Confused murmurs filled the church. Jessica froze. The officiant blinked. The guests looked around nervously. My heart nearly stopped. Ethan stepped away from the altar. Before we continue, he said. His voice shook. I need to do something first. The room fell silent. I looked at Jessica. To my surprise. She was crying. Not upset. Not angry. Crying. Like she'd been waiting for this moment. Ethan turned. Not toward the bride. Not toward the guests. Toward me. Every eye in the church followed him. Dad always told me that character isn't revealed when people are watching. His voice cracked. It's revealed when nobody notices. I didn't understand. Neither did anyone else. Then he started walking toward my row. And suddenly I realized something impossible. Jessica wasn't smiling. She was sobbing. As if the secret she'd been carrying was finally about to come out. And for the first time, I wondered whether I'd been wrong about everything. As Ethan stood in front of me, he revealed the real reason Jessica had hidden things for months, and the truth behind the kitchen entrance, the secret phone calls, the missing invitations, and the humiliating seating arrangement left the entire church in tears. As Ethan stood in front of me, the entire church waited in stunned silence. I could hear people whispering. The wedding planner looked panicked. The officiant seemed completely lost. Even Jessica's father looked confused. But Ethan never took his eyes off me. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. His hands trembled. So many people here think today is about Jessica and me. He swallowed hard. And they're right. A few nervous laughs rippled through the room. But before I marry the woman I love, I need to honor the person who taught me what love actually looks like. My heart pounded. I had no idea where this was going. Then Ethan looked directly at me. Mom. His voice cracked. And suddenly I felt 20 years of memories rushing back. The nights after my husband died. The overdue bills. The second jobs. The birthdays I worked through. The sacrifices I never talked about. The fears I never showed. I felt tears gathering in my eyes. Most people here know my father passed away when I was young. The church grew quiet. But what they don't know is what happened afterward. He unfolded the paper. It was old. Worn. Yellowed at the edges. I found this letter after Dad died. My breath caught. I recognized it immediately. My husband's handwriting. I hadn't seen that letter in over a decade. Ethan looked at the crowd. My father wrote this shortly before he passed away. His voice shook. He wrote about my mother. The room became completely silent. Then Ethan began reading. If you're reading this, it means I wasn't lucky enough to stay. Several guests lowered their heads. I need you to know something about your mother. Ethan paused. Trying not to cry. One day people will praise you for your achievements. They'll admire your success. They'll celebrate your victories. He looked at me. But none of those things will belong only to you. His voice broke. They will belong to the woman who gave up pieces of her life so you could have yours. The tears finally escaped. Not just mine. Jessica's too. And suddenly I noticed something. She wasn't crying because she felt guilty. She was crying because she already knew what was coming. Then Ethan continued. Your mother will hide her sacrifices from you because that's what mothers do. The church was silent except for sniffles. Don't wait until she's gone to thank her. I covered my mouth. My entire body was shaking. Ethan folded the letter. Then he smiled through tears. Jessica read that letter 6 months ago. I blinked. The room stirred. Jessica lowered her head. After she read it, she came to me with an idea. Now everyone looked at Jessica. Including me. Ethan continued. She wanted today to be more than a wedding. I frowned. What did that mean? Then Jessica slowly stepped forward. Tears streamed down her face. Diane. It was the first time she'd spoken all day. I owe you an apology. The room held its breath. My heart sank. For months I'd imagined this moment. But not like this. Jessica wiped her eyes. You thought I was pushing you away. I couldn't answer. Because I had. Every day. Every week. Every month. Jessica nodded slowly. You had every reason to believe that. Then she looked around the church. The secret phone calls weren't about excluding you. She smiled sadly. They were about planning this. I stared at her. Completely confused. She pointed toward the giant doors at the back of the church. The doors suddenly opened. And my breath disappeared. People began entering. One after another. Then another. Then another. Faces I recognized. Former neighbors. Old coworkers. Friends I hadn't seen in years. Members of our old church. People from every chapter of my life. My hands flew to my mouth. What? The word barely escaped. Jessica was crying openly now. For 6 months we'd been tracking down everyone whose life you touched. The room blurred through tears. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. An elderly woman approached first. I immediately recognized her. Mrs. Peterson. The widow from my neighborhood. 20 years ago I'd helped care for her after surgery. She hugged me tightly. Then another person approached. Then another. Then another. each carrying a white rose. One by one they filled the front rows. Rows that had looked empty earlier. Rows I now realized had been intentionally reserved. Not for Jessica's family. Not for strangers. For my past. For people I'd helped over the years. Jessica smiled through tears. The third row seat wasn't meant to insult you. My stomach dropped. She pointed toward the front row. A seat sat empty. Directly beside Ethan. A framed photograph rested on it. My husband's photograph. I gasped. The entire church began crying. Including me. Especially me. Jessica's voice shook. We wanted you to enter through the kitchen because the front entrance was being prepared. She pointed behind me. A large video screen lowered from the ceiling. We didn't want you to see this before the ceremony. The screen flickered to life. Photos appeared. My husband. Young Ethan. Family vacations. Birthday parties. Christmas mornings. Then came photos I didn't even know existed. Pictures people had secretly contributed. Pictures spanning 40 years. My entire life. A lifetime of love. A lifetime of sacrifice. A lifetime I never thought anyone noticed. The church echoed with sobs. Jessica turned toward me. Every clue you saw. She smiled sadly. The receipts were for this. The phone calls were for this. The meetings were for this. The secrets were for this. Every suspicious thing. Every hurt feeling. Every misunderstanding. Every painful moment. None of it had been betrayal. It had been love. A surprise built over 6 months. A surprise so big they had to hide it. And in hiding it, they accidentally broke my heart. I looked at Jessica. The young woman I'd silently judged. The woman I'd spent months resenting. The woman I thought wanted me gone. And suddenly the guilt hit me like a wave. I started crying harder than ever. Jessica rushed toward me. Without hesitation I wrapped my arms around her. I'm so sorry. The words poured out. Over and over. I'm so sorry. She hugged me tighter. No. She whispered. I'm sorry too. For several moments neither of us let go. The church watched quietly. Many openly crying. Then Ethan joined us. The three of us stood there together. A family. Not perfect. Not flawless. But united. Finally Ethan laughed through tears. So. The guests chuckled. He looked at the officiant. Can we finish this wedding now? The church erupted into applause. A few minutes later I moved to the front row. Beside my husband's photograph. Exactly where I belonged. Exactly where they'd wanted me all along. As Jessica walked down the aisle a second time, I saw her differently. Not as the woman who took my son away. But as the woman who loved him enough to honor the mother who raised him. That day taught me something I'll never forget. Sometimes the things that hurt us most aren't betrayals. Sometimes they're acts of love we don't understand yet. And sometimes the truth hiding behind our worst assumptions is far kinder than we ever imagined. As Ethan and Jessica exchanged vows, I glanced at my husband's photograph. For a moment, it felt like he was there. Smiling. Proud. At peace. And for the first time in a very long time. So was I.